We had different ideas about who Selma really was. I wanted her to be more of an artistic character, but Lars, who is a complete fanatic, wants his role figures to suffer, especially the female ones. I couldn't really accept that. Selma has had a hard life, and she's very imaginative due to all the time she has escaped from her problems into a fantasy world. Her despair gives you an emotional kick. She makes you high, but Lars thought that was impossible. Those are words from actress and musician Björk. Seeing Faces in Movies is a podcast where each month I focus on the works of a different director or cinematographer, and each week I invite a guest on to discuss a film and the artist's filmography. I'm your host, Felicia, and today we're talking about Lars von Trier's 2000 film, Dancer in the Dark. Now, before we get into the film, I just want to say hello. Been a while, and apologies for the radio silence. Just had to get some life things in order, and it took a little longer than anticipated, but I'm very happy to be back talking about movies. It's my favorite thing to do. Small disclaimer, this series on Von Trier was actually recorded before the break started last year. So we're on a bit of a catch-up situation, and I just want to give a quick shout out to all four of my lovely guests that joined me over this series for being patient while I work to release these episodes. I'm very excited to be back, and enough of that. Let's get into a very fun film called Dancer in the Dark. A very quick synopsis of the film is an Eastern European American immigrant with a love for musicals has to cope with the gradual loss of her vision. Tagline for the film is, "You don't need eyes to see." The film stars Björk as Selma Jaskova, Catherine Deneuve as Kathy, David Morse as Bill Houston, Peter Stormare as Jeff, and Siobhan Fallon as Brenda. It's written by Lars von Trier and Sean, cinematography by Robbie Mueller. It's directed by Lars von Trier, edited by François Gézigier and Molly Malene Stensgaard, music by Björk, costumes by Manon Rasmussen, and special effects by Martin Hogberg. So today my guest is Scott Cole, and he's a returning guest from my Jane Campion series, and we talked about another dark film called In the Cut. So it's obviously ongoing theme here. I'm sure if we get a third try at it, we'll find something even more depressing than this one, what we're talking about today. But thank you so much for coming back on and talking about Dancer in the Dark with me.
Yeah, thanks for having me back. I feel like when I go on my friend's podcast now, there's a theme. Like when I go on our friend Nick's podcast at movies, I've only done movies from 1994 for some reason. And that's, I guess, all I'll ever do. So when I come on your podcast, I'm only going to do depressing movies. It's just like a theme I developed for each friend's podcast.
I mean, consistency is key, so we appreciate it. We're here. We're talking about Dancing in the Dark, Lars von Trier. I'm curious to hear, before we get into the film itself, what your relationship is to his work. Are you familiar? Are you a fan?
I'm not sure if I mentioned this in the past episode, but when I was a kid, I was very, very obsessed with Siskel and Ebert, like majorly obsessed. Yep. It only came on here at like 12:35 in the morning on Sunday night, so I had to record it and then would watch it on Sunday morning when I woke up. Every week I'd watch it. And so Breaking the Waves is the first time I ever heard of Lars von Trier or that movie. And they loved it. And it was like number 2 on both their lists that year for the top 10. And so I think a few years later when I got old, it was when I got old enough to start renting R-rated movies. My parents wouldn't let me until like 1998 when I turned 13 or 14. And then like they probably regretted it because I just started renting everything I had wanted to see from the years past that I couldn't. So I watched Breaking the Waves. It was unlike anything I'd ever seen ever. It like totally just knocked me out because I was like, it's so different and weird. And the ending is such a weird, bizarre swing that movies don't take normally. Like that ending of that movie will never like leave my brain, kind of like his other movies. But okay, so I watched Breaking the Waves, and then a couple years later, it was right after Siskel had died. Ebert had like rotating critics come on, and in one of the episodes they talked about Cannes 2000. They'd just been to Cannes, And they're like, they talked about all these movies. They're like, and the Palme d'Or and Best Actress Award went to this musical, this Lars von Trier musical. And they described it and showed a couple of clips from it. And I was like, well, I know who Björk is. My sister my sister is 3 years older than me. She was like right in the middle of like middle school when post Cal, like she was a big Björk fan. So I knew Björk through her, not as well as her, but I knew her. And like that whole Lilith Fair gang of like Björk and Tori Amos, they were all my sister's favorites. So I saw it. I was like, that's Björk. Okay. And she's in a musical by the Breaking the Waves guy. Crazy. And then I remember at the end of the like thing, the segment, Ebert said, I saw it. He said, I still have to see it again. He's like, I'm not sure if it's absolutely brilliant or a total fraud. Which I thought was a really fascinating statement that he made like publicly. He's like, I haven't figured it out yet. He's like, I'm gonna have to watch it again. But the way he said that, he's like, I just don't know. He's like, I don't know what to make of it. I still haven't decided. And then of course the other critic on there, I think, was like Lesterman. He was like, I got on my nerves. And so anyway, when the movie finally came out, Ebert did give it a positive review and he liked it a lot. Maybe not as much as Breaking the Waves, but so when that came out on video, I saw it finally. And like everyone, I think was like, this is crazy. What is this? This is interesting. This is like, I've never seen like this before. And then of course, like with Breaking the Waves, the last 30 minutes, like rip your heart out.
Yeah.
I really love Melancholia. I saw that in the theater. That was like 10 years later, but I saw that in the theater and it's hard to pick a favorite. That's one of my favorites. And I was just telling you this year, I saw Dogville again on the big screen. They had a Nicole Kidman series at my local theater.
Oh, wow.
Like they did 8 of her movies. I saw most of them. And they did Dogville. I watched it. I'd seen it a long time ago and liked it, but I watched it somehow. I was like, this is a great movie. Like I really dug it again, which I was saying it's kind of weird because it's like it doesn't have as good of critical reviews as some of his other movies, and she is so like there's no movie Nicole Kidman's bad in, but she's so good in that movie. Like you're always just kind of stunned when you see her again, like how good she can be in everything. And it's got a great supporting cast, which all of his movies do. They all have a lot of good character actors who show up. Catherine Deneuve as a punch press operator, and she's pretty good in the movie, even though it's kind of weird. She's good in the movie. But yeah, there are some I haven't seen. I haven't seen the Nymphomaniac movies. I haven't seen the one with Matt Dillon, the one that people have a really strong opinion of.
The house that Jack built. Yeah.
Yeah. There's still need to fill in the gaps, but I feel like I've seen the big ones. Am I forgetting one? I don't know if I am, but I've seen a lot of the big not tent pole. That's not the right thing.
Antichrist might be the other
milestones. Big one. What was the other one?
Antichrist?
I've seen Antichrist. I saw that once in the theater and never again. And I might see it again, but I don't remember what I thought of it because I remember it was in college. I was young. The one thing I do remember is the theater I saw it at was an indie theater and they wouldn't serve alcohol because it was NC-17. That was apparently a rule they had, which no one knew. So I think people were like, we'll go get a drink and watch Antichrist. And they were like, not during the NC-17 movie, you're not. So everybody had to sit through that movie stone cold sober and deal with it. That's kind of funny. So
that's hilarious.
Yeah, that's kind of all my Lars von Trier experience. It's always been generally positive, but of course then you hear quotes from him as a real man and you're like, well, okay, this is complicated.
Yep, yeah, exactly that. I think that's exactly how I'm trying to figure out. And I'm kind of winging it, navigating this series because he is someone whose work I admire, just like yourself. But yeah, sometimes, and I mean, of late, obviously, he is sick, so he's not really working. Who knows if we'll ever get anything else from him, to be entirely honest. And because he's not working, doesn't have the platform to say the nonsense he has been saying over the past couple decades. So yes, as a person, deeply problematic. As an artist, I love his work. Not all of it. There's some, and I'm sure I'll get into it, that I don't love, but this is one that I do admire a lot. I also saw it. This is only my second time watching it. Probably saw it just over 10 years ago. And it was one I had only seen. So the first one I saw was Dogville, randomly. And maybe I'll talk about it a bit more when we get into the second segment, because we'll be chatting about Dogville a bit and that film. But watch this because I had heard Dance in the Dark, you got to watch it, but I didn't know what it was about. So I remember I rented it from the library, put it on, and I was like, okay, I know Björk. I had a cousin who was obsessed. Everyone has like a family member who was a Björk fan. It was like, yeah,
Definitely.
and I've seen some videos, um, like music videos of her. Put it on. I was like, okay, this is cool. This is interesting. I'd never really seen anything visually like this, just like the way it's shot. And just the same way I felt with Dogville, where I was just like, this is weird. Looking at the time run, it's long. Am I going to sit in one place to watch this and just could not move? Like you're just stuck and glued to the screen and just being so distraught at the last 30 minutes that I was like, I don't think I could ever watch this again. And I was wondering if anyone was going to pick this for this series. So when you said it, I was like, you know what? I think it's time. I think everyone else is too scared to pick it, to be entirely honest, myself included. But I'm glad. I'm actually genuinely glad that I got to watch it again because I have a different appreciation for it than the first time when you're not aware of what anything is going to happen. With Dancer in the Dark, we've kind of hinted at some stuff, but we can get into, the first segment and just talk about our personal thoughts on the film, like the story. We both mentioned that we saw it quite a while ago for the first time and hadn't really gone to seek it out again because it's heavy and it's not one you're just like, you know what, I really feel like watching Dance in the Dark today.
Yeah.
It kind of needs to be assigned to you for a reason. I'm wondering how you feel about just the way a story like this is crafted and the idea of it being something that you can admire the craft of, but not necessarily enjoy, as people who like depressing movies.
Yeah, and it is funny because this was also my second time. The first time I would watch it like right when it came out on VHS in my parents' house in the bedroom, probably like it's been about 25 years since I've seen this movie. Which is crazy. But that line that Ebert said has always hung over me with this movie, that is it a fraud or does he mean it? Like there's kind of weird moments in this movie where you're not always sure the whole time
Yeah.
how sincere it is, but what works for me ultimately the most about the movie is, of course, Lars von Trier has a lot of things to say about America for a man who's never been here. A lot of very bad things to say about America for a man who's never been here. I'm not saying he's wrong about all of it. I'm just saying he has a lot of opinions. He likes to recreate
Yeah,
America in Sweden or whatever, and I think this was Sweden. But
it was. Yeah.
I think that Bjork is, despite, I guess we can talk later about what has come out about their relationship making this movie
Hmm.
and the problems there. But I think she is a smart choice in this movie. And I know she was already making the music before he asked her to star in it. But there's something like that's very childlike kind of and innocent about her voice and the way she sings songs is such a juxtaposition of what's happening in this movie that I think your equilibrium is always thrown off. Like you don't know where you stand because it's like it makes it so clear how much the musical sequences are only happening in her head, which is sort of unusual. I would say before this, I don't think I'd seen a movie where it was like there's nothing real about any of the musical sequences. Those are only her delusions from bad times coming on. Like the first
Hmm.
musical number in this movie is like 40 minutes in. It doesn't really happen until things start going bad. So it's like it's clear that that's like her way of dealing with what's going on. But he's showing these as like alternate realities that she's dipping into to get away. But then I feel like they're really well directed too. Like I feel like the musical numbers are really well done. So it's like he's not half-assing this stuff. And I hate to get on my Joker 2 soapbox, but I feel like a lot of the numbers in Joker 2 were pretty half-assed, in my opinion. So the musical numbers, I was not a big fan of that. And that has a similar thing where it's like fantasy escape to another world for the moment of what's happening. But like for a Lars von Trier movie, which has a specific look and a specific way about it, I thought, like, especially that first one in the factory, I was like, this is really well done. Like all the
Yes.
cuts and like the way that the way they're all dancing together, I just was like, that was the main thing that impressed me the most this time watching was how well done the musical sequences were. 'Cause I remember them being more as like kind of campy, and they are a little bit, but they're actually really, really good. And like, I like the songs, and I was like, they did a good job, I think, with the musical part. They didn't like half-ass that at all. And I think it makes so because those are good, it makes the reality of what's happening and the like sadness of that hit even harder, especially in the end. Because of him and his films, you don't sometimes you don't know where he's if he's just trying to prod you just to be like, haha, look, I can get you. You know what I mean? So it's kind of interesting that way.
Yeah, I mean, everything you said, I'm just like, obviously the listener can't see, but I'm like vigorously shaking my head in agreement. You said so much that I wanted to talk about, and that is so important. I think it boils the movie down so perfectly. I had a greater appreciation for the craft of this film on the second watch because the first time, especially if you know the name Lars von Trier, and I think especially if you're watching it nowadays, the first time it requires like a second watch to get over the shock of things and just trying to understand, especially at this point. And I know we'll talk about it in the second segment also of what he did right before this, which is a film called The Idiots, which won the Palme d'Or also. And that's a whole different vibe. It has similarities to this, but it's a different vibe than what he's going for here. So I could see people being like, is he being sincere or not?
Mhm.
So, but visually, the musical sequences are fantastically shot. And I think opening the film with an overture sets the scene perfectly. And I don't know that I caught onto it. I definitely didn't catch onto it. Sorry. The first time I watched it, second time, I was like, oh, this makes so much sense because it's setting you up for those musicals of that time. It's mirroring those old musicals. I just want to shout out Robbie Mueller, who's a cinematographer whom I love. And he shot this film beautifully. Those musical sequences feel so cinematic, and I love that they're kind of shot within the confines of the actual setting of the film. It's
Yeah.
not like they
Mhm.
went off into another world. It's like so beautifully done, but it's in, like you said, like a factory, right?
Yeah. A courthouse. Like it's crazy how they stay in the yeah. Mhm.
Right? And what you said about her voice, and kind of the childlike, the naive way that she appears and everything that's happening to her, I think is also important. So this film was the third installment in a trilogy that he calls the Golden Heart trilogy. It starts off with Breaking the Waves, The
Yeah.
Idiots, and then Dancer in the Dark.
Naive female protagonists kind of. Yeah, yeah. I see what you're saying. I haven't seen The Idiots. I need to watch that.
Well, we'll talk about
Okay.
it. Um, but this is the third in that. It's also kind of his last of the Dogma 95 films that he was doing. So just kind of a little very succinct history lesson for the audience members who are like, I don't know what Dogma 95 is. Lars von Trier and Thomas Vinterberg, who is now even made his own name. I think he was kind of under the shadows of von Trier for a long time, but with stuff like oh my god, why am I blanking
Another
on
round? Did
the
he do another round?
another round? Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
but himself and Thomas Vinterberg kind of were the at the head of this movement, and essentially what it was is that they wanted to make films that were, you know, pure in the sense of no spectacles, very shot kind of handheld digitally with no special effects or other
Yeah.
technical gimmicks or somewhat. So it's like they had to be shot on location. They had to have, sound be a part of like the actual setting and not added afterwards.
Do they add any additional light or is it all natural light too? Because that
It
feels
sh-
like it's
it should
natural.
be it should be that was their thing. Everything should
Okay.
be as natural as humanly possible.
Yeah.
And then they hated genre films. So this one is kind of bending genre films, and this is where he starts to move towards his new career, which again, I know I keep saying we'll talk about it later, but we will. But this is the last of that. I don't know if you're familiar with that movement or just, I mean, you obviously sound like you are, and his other films. How do you feel about how that fits into this as is genre bending and it is a musical, but it has those other components?
I feel like so as far as the Dogma 95 thing, yeah, I did miss The Idiots, which I'm gonna need to go back and watch. But Did you ever see Julien Donkey Boy, the Harmony
A
Korine movie?
long, long, long time ago.
Okay,
Yeah.
I believe that is Dogma 95. That's like extreme Dogma 95. Like it's like there's no entry point to that movie. You just watch it and you just have to, but yes, it is all so that I think that was my introduction. I think I even saw that before Breaking the Waves, maybe. So because I was a Gummo Kids fan, way too young to be. I don't know what's wrong with me, but anyway, so I was like Harmony Korine. So I would say like I was also gonna say I did not remember there was an overture at all. So when it started that way, I was like, "Oh my God, how did I like it feels like something I would have remembered, but you don't remember it." But you're right, it sets up the way the movie works so well. And I can only imagine being at Cannes, like seeing it for the first time, not knowing it. You're like, why is the first 40 minutes not like it makes you think you're going right into a musical, and then you're like, so I'm sure when the first song starts 40 minutes and you're like, oh, okay. But I thought the way that I think the way the Dogma 95 works so well is it has to do a lot of it. Like I kind of interrupted you, but like a lot of it has to do with the natural lighting. Like I think, you think about those scenes in the factory, even the ones before they start the musical. If you know the song from the factory, you can start to hear those
Hmm.
sounds in the background. Like you're starting to pick up pieces of the machinery making the beats and stuff. Like you even pick that up, and the lighting specific for that. And then when they're outside on the train, that lighting's very like I think the lighting for each moment is like so appropriate because it makes you like you said, it's not moving into fantasy like in a over the top Hollywood way, which they criticize several times in the movie. Like she loves Hollywood musicals. They go to see Hollywood musicals. Catherine Deneuve has to explain to her what's happening because she can't see very well.
Hmm.
Which I'll put a pin in that. I have a question about her eyesight, which was really bothering me this time. But anyway, we'll get to it. Yeah, and it's like when they're in the courtroom, that musical scene still looks very fluorescent lit. Like just nothing goes outside of the confines of what the like actual setting or scene would be. And I think
Hmm.
the Dogma 95 stuff really makes it feel that way. I'm especially saying this the day after seeing Wicked when everything is backlit to holy hell. It's
Yeah.
like, it's just, I mean, it's not a bad movie at all, but it's just not this. Nothing is
No,
this.
yeah.
I feel like Lars von Trier wanted to almost destroy musicals for good. He's like, I'm going to make a musical that'll make everybody
Yeah.
be like, you can't do it. They're too fake. Like mine's going to be so real that it'll, shove in everybody's face and be like, we're done. But to answer your question, I love the Dogma 95 stuff. I like that style. People complained back then that it made them dizzy. I've never had that issue, which I consider like that's just maybe my luck because it makes some people really sick the way the camera moves.
Mhm.
But I've always really enjoyed it. I like how it feels handheld and like right there in the middle of the action. I've always really liked that.
I think that's also like especially I know I always just talk about Robbie Miller, my obsession of him, but I think it's really his craft on this because again, the film he does right before this, The Idiots, has I can see why that would make people dizzy because it's very jittery. Whereas Robbie
Mhm.
Mueller has more constraint. He's very good at holding a camera and moving it in a way that feels like you're kind of moving with it as opposed to you're trying to catch up with the camera.
Yeah.
So I definitely appreciate that. And I love that the lighting does switch between scenes because sometimes you're like, oh, this feels very yellow, and then it feels very gray. And, knowing that you mentioned that it actually was filmed in Sweden, but it's supposed to be America, and knowing the Dogma 95, everything had to be actual locations, not sets. So they're trying to recreate America as much as they can. Well, again, I'm also an outsider. I don't live in America, but I was like, I had completely forgotten until she said that they were in America, that it was supposed to be there. Because I was like, this doesn't look really American to me. I don't know where it would be, to be entirely honest, where they were trying. I can't remember where they were
It
supposed to
was
be.
supposed to be in Washington State. So
Oh.
they solved that problem by just putting greenery everywhere. like this is gonna be Pacific Northwest. They also set it in 64, which I think was maybe their way of getting around some stuff looking a little bit old fashioned or not
Okay.
as current as it should. Yeah, I know what you're saying, kind of though. It's like it's a very like it's easy to forget kind of that that's what it is. Like this movie doesn't drill it home as ways like movie does about America sucks. Like, it's kind of just this particular story that takes place in America where she's getting railroaded and screwed over in every way possible by the legal system.
Yeah.
But even that's so melodramatic too. But it's all part of the thing where I think he's trying to make everything raise the stakes as much as possible. Cause he's always got that out where he's like, well, it's a musical. I have to make things, you think about her legal situation and you're like, there could have been ways where this wouldn't have happened quite this way, or she could have said something else or like, you know what I mean? But he's like, no, we're going for the most dramatic, bleakest way to get out of this possible, which is interesting. So,
yeah. I mean, that's definitely his MO. Also, I think him just being like, in his mind, thinking things are as dramatic as he's portrayed them there, because also, like, would she have been sentenced to death so quickly? I feel like people are on death row for a very long time.
Yeah.
Before they actually.
Fast. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, was this like a week later that she's already been sentenced?
Yeah. She got to stay.
Quick.
And the next day they're like, nope, no more stay. You're gone. You're done.
Yeah. Oh my God. Well, before we get into that last act, I'm just curious to hear about how you feel he treats his characters. And we'll talk about how he treats actors separately, because we could probably save that to the third segment, seeing as this is not the only film that people have had complaints about him, but how he treats his characters. Because when you read about this film criticism, I've read mixed things of people who think that he doesn't take these characters seriously and he wants to impose as much harm to them. If you read Björk's thoughts on it too, she thinks also that he just wanted to inflict as much harm to Selma, her character. And there's other people who think that he's empathetic to his characters and empathetic to the things that women face. And yes, he's dramatizing it much more than it usually is. But I don't know. For me, I think it depends on the movie, to be honest. And in this movie, I think there's a mix of both. I think he is empathetic to the plights of women, as as dramatic as that sounds, and the relationships between women and the relationships between women and men, if we're keeping things, very binary, gendered, and the way women or men can take advantage of women that he is portraying as very naive. It's complicated, but curious just to hear your personal thoughts.
Well, it is interesting, like, when I think about this, to be compared to, I'll say, Breaking the Waves and Dogville, because in both of those movies, he gives the female protagonist the last laugh. She gets the last word on the situation. Like, she gets almost like revenge, pretty much, like in a way, whether it's like cosmic or whatever. But she gets the final say, and this one, she doesn't.
Yeah.
He gives her, I find it, I don't know, like, that's interesting to hear what Björk thinks about it, because when I watch it, I feel like he's empathetic with her. I feel like Lars likes the character, and I feel like he's putting her through a lot, but I feel like he's also giving her a lot of, what's the right word? Like, she's able to have her, emotions and be upset about stuff and get to like work through them. I guess it's like, I'm thinking more toward the ending, I suppose, when she really gets to break down. But I feel weird though saying that, because it is interesting, like, to hear her say that she thinks he inflicts the most harm. And there is a lot of bad stuff that happens, but I personally, while watching it, feel like he's on her side and he's trying to make it clear to us that she's a good person, trying to do the right thing. She's a good mother, trying to be a good mother, trying to be a good friend. She's like, I won't tell your secret. She doesn't tell the secret after he's dead in jail, like, or in court. Yeah. It's crazy. Like, I feel like he gives her a lot of positive attributes that hold up throughout the movie. I need to go back and look more into like I know some of the stuff about the Björk and his relationship, but I need to look back and more of that, because you're right, it might be movie to movie, because I don't know. In Dogville, a lot of bad stuff happens to her too. He gives her the last word on it, but that to me almost feels more like he's knocking her around than this does, in a way. And it's just kind of, maybe that's because it's more physical stuff that happens in that movie than like this one where it's more emotional. Maybe that's what it is, but I feel like this movie has a plot where you can kind of see how point A gets to point, like, it moves along the plot where it doesn't feel like random stuff just happening to her. To me, it feels like it's moving along like a kind of a logical path that makes sense if you were, living in the trailer behind this house and this guy came to you and was like, well, here's my situation. And you're like, guess what? I have money hidden. It's just, yeah, I don't know.
I mean, it's exactly that. I agree also. I think he is empathetic to this character. And I think up until even her end, I think he's saying that there's nothing that could have been done, unfortunately. And that's probably more, I think he's more harsh towards the American, system of that more so than her as a woman. I think he's saying that, look, that even someone who's nice like this, something can happen to her. All these things can happen to her. And I don't think he's painting her as stupid. Because even though when in that scene when she's telling him about the money, you kind of just want to be like, shut up.
Yeah, don't
Don't
say,
trust this
yeah.
man.
Yeah, it makes you so anxious. It makes you so anxious. You're like, shut
I
up.
know. I'm just like, girl, please don't. I don't care who he is. Like, I would not trust anyone with that information.
And his characters, he's so manipulative too, the way they write him. Like the day after he asks her for the loan, he's like kind of cold to her that next morning. Like he's so, it drives me crazy the way he's like, he puts everything on her. No, it's, don't worry about it. I'll just be like, broken up with my wife, whatever. It'll be fine. You know what I mean? But anyway, I'm sorry. I interrupted you.
No,
Yeah, he
no.
drives me crazy.
And it's a great performance by David
Yeah,
Morris.
he's great.
So great that you're just kind of like, he always kind of gets typecast as like the very nasty character, but he's really nasty here. It's hard to watch their interactions and, just him in general. But I think for me, why it depends on film to film is sometimes I do think that he can be harsh towards some characters or not take them seriously. And I'll talk about that when we talk about the idiots. But here I do think he has some love for this woman. And I think Björk's response to it is also just her personal response and the way they shaped Selma together. She was saying she wanted her to have more of that kind of whimsy of, the scenes where she is thinking about the music. And he was like, no, she has to die. That's how she described it. I don't know if that's how the conversation went. I don't know that she needed to die, but like honestly, in the scope of the story, it makes sense, unfortunately, that she does. And honestly, I guess we could probably talk about the last scene in the last act and how harsh it is. And like you're already sad throughout this. And this second time I didn't cry up until she knows that she's going. And I just couldn't help it. I was just like sobbing. It was like it's a lot and the song. And I also want to shout out Siobhan Fallon, who plays
I'm so
I
glad.
love
I'm so glad.
her.
Yeah. She's
She's
good.
so good in this movie. And I think she really is kind of like the saving factor, the I don't know, guardian angel, if you want to say, in this movie. She's so good. Like I love
you're
her
like, thank
performance.
God she's there.
For real.
I mean,
And she's in it for a short time, but she's so impactful. Like I can't stop thinking about her in this movie. The third act, that's the reason why you don't want to watch this movie again. It's because of that. You don't want to
You
put
know what's
yourself through
coming.
it.
Yep.
And I do have a question about the end credits too, in your opinion, but before we get to that, just how you feel about this and like it's culminating to this. This is almost a 2.5 hour long movie. I think the pacing is good, to be honest, in this movie. But that last act, not that it goes slow, it's just that you are filled with so much emotion and dread that you want it to be over at that point.
Yeah, I agree with you that it's well paced because it doesn't feel very long. But yeah, it's like up until that last 30 minutes, you're like, this has kind of gone by quickly and it hasn't lingered on too much. And then you're right. In the last minutes, it really lingers on everything in the jail, which you're right. Because of your anxiety, it makes it so much more intense. But Siobhan Fallon, I had only known her as from the SNL cast. That's the only time I'd ever seen her. She was on SNL in the 90s for a brief time. And I remembered her being like funny from that. And she was in a couple of like funny movies. And, but yeah, she was a member of the SNL cast for a short time. And that's how I knew her. So when she showed up, I was like, oh, he casts SNL. But then I didn't realize she was part of his company. Like she's in so many of his movies. But she is great. Yeah, you're really, really happy that she's there. And then you wonder, like, so my question about the ending is, as far as we know, everything that isn't a musical is really happening in the movie. But I don't know if Catherine Deneuve at the end is really happening in this movie. Her running up there, being able to get in there, giving her the glasses, saying, "Don't worry, it's all fine now. He's got the surgery." I don't know if I believe that that's really happening.
Yeah.
Because it just seems too improbable, or like just too, in a weird way, it feels like too much for him to give her at the end. Like he's like, "Here, okay, I'll give you the one thing that was keeping you alive, like
Mhm.
that's taken care of." I wondered if you agree with that. I wasn't sure if that, I feel like maybe at that point the lines crossed and was like, okay, well, a non musical fantasy moment snuck in.
Mhm.
I don't know. I mean, there's nothing really in the movie to tell me that. It's just my own feeling, so I could be making it up. But
Yeah, that's actually, like, a really great point, and I hadn't thought of it that way, but I think it makes sense because what I thought was just like, "There's no way she got back there," and they allowed her to do that. First of all, how did
she's
she get through those
downstairs
doors?
too. She got up some stairs and then came in the door. Yeah, it was crazy. I don't know how that
Like, I
happened.
know they're not there, but I'm sure that door is locked,
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah,
Just so that she doesn't run out, Selma, and it did feel like not that it was tacking on a happy ending to something that obviously is not a happy ending, but it felt like it was mirroring that Hollywood need to have something to keep the audience kind of be like, "Well, she's at peace now with her death." So I
yeah,
think that is exactly probably what you're saying. That is that moment that snuck in secretly without the musical aspect of having something, and it probably didn't happen, but in her mind, maybe she heard Catherine Deneuve's voice speaking to her from down there, and she was
yeah,
like she probably was just speaking to her from down there, saying she's fine, but I don't know that she actually ran up and gave her the glasses. Um,
yeah.
Especially because I think, when she does, it immediately cuts to her hanging. So
Right.
I think it's really to snap us back, be like, you know, uh, let's get back into what we're here to do.
Yeah,
Unfortunately,
yeah.
traumatic.
It feels weirdly like you're saying he was like, I wonder if it was, no, there's no way to know this. This is all speculation, but I wonder if he
Mhm.
wanted it to be as bleak as possible. And somewhere along the line, somebody got in his ear and was like, we have to give her something at the end.
Yeah.
We cannot have, because like the part that I lost it at was the hood part.
Hmm.
But we're in the hood. Like that part, I held it together pretty well until the hood part. Um, and then I was like, okay, this movie's just fuck this movie. I'm over it.
Yeah.
But then they let her not wear the hood because she can't see it. Okay, so this might be a good time to bring up my eyesight question real quick.
Hmm. Hmm.
The eyesight thing is so confusing to me in this movie because I feel like for a while the movie's consistent within like, okay, it's getting worse and worse and worse. She can't see during the night in the factory, which is weird to me because it's the same lighting. And they say that. Somebody in the
Yeah.
movie says that to her, says it's the exact same lighting. She's like, well, I can't see. And then later, when she's in jail, she doesn't have her glasses on, but she's looking pretty clearly at Catherine Deneuve having a conversation with her. And then in the courtroom, the lawyer says, your doctor did not support your testimony that you are having trouble seeing. It's just, to me, that seeing thing it doesn't matter or in the movie, but it's all over the place, like what
It
the
is.
rules are with her eyesight. And I'm wondering if there's a deeper meaning to that I'm not understanding, but it's just really, they're really all over it with it. Yeah. Like she couldn't see a train next to her at one point in the middle of the movie. I don't know. Anyway, that's a small point, but it drove me crazy a little bit.
No, I feel the same way because I'm like, is he trying to say that it's in her head a lot of the times that she can't see?
Might
And
be.
maybe it
Yeah.
is. Maybe she's just like I think she is actually losing her vision, but like maybe it's exacerbated at certain times when she's very stressed out.
She does say that at the end too. She says, if Jean worries, it'll make it worse. Do you remember she says that to
Yes.
Catherine Deneuve? Oh my God, I think we've cracked it. I think you did it.
Yeah.
It's like a mental
Sometimes you
thing.
need to
Yeah.
talk it out. Yeah, I think it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
One of the last things I wanted to bring up, and I'll pass it off to you if you have any last personal thoughts, was I had also, as much as I'd also forgotten the overture, I forgot about the end credits sequence and the little clips beside the actors' names. Like,
Yes. Yeah. They're
we don't get
highlights for
those
the movie.
anymore. Yeah, the
Yeah.
highlights. After you watched Her Be Hung, I was just like, wow, I'm being hit with highlights now from the film.
Yeah.
It's very much, again, old Hollywood thing where they would do the highlight reel. And I think, for lack of a better word, it's kind of hilarious that he did that because he's really kind of just been, a big ol' fuck you to
Yeah,
the
yeah.
audience at the end.
Well,
Wondering how you
yeah.
feel.
Well, and do you remember the Dogville end credits by
No.
chance? He shows pictures, black and white pictures of Americans in the Great Depression throughout time, playing Young Americans by David Bowie over it, while the names of the actors.
Yes.
Okay, so he loves to fuck you in the end credits. He loves to do that to the audience. Say, you know what? Yeah, and I think that's like absolutely what it is, because no person who wasn't trying to mess with you in the movie that way after what you just saw. Um,
No.
and I think he loves getting that final jab in the end credits. That's his. I think that's his MO. Yeah.
Yeah, very much. I was just like, this guy with the highlight reel. I think you see at some point
The
David
sizzle
Morris
reel.
as Bill, like smiling and
Yeah.
laughing. I'm like, we all hate him.
Yeah. We don't want to see that guy again. Yeah.
No, we don't want to see him again. Um, well, I'll pass it off to you. Do you have any last personal thoughts that we haven't touched upon? We'll still continue
Yeah.
talking about the story, but anything you want to mention now before we move to the second segment?
Okay. So I'll say this. I think this might be the best performance I've ever seen by somebody in their first movie, like who's not an actor. Like, I mean, I know she knows from music videos and stuff like that, but she
Mm-hmm.
never carried a movie before, especially anything with this much dramatic weight. And it's just insane to me that this was not a Best Actress nominee at the Oscars.
I know.
I know there's politics about it, whatever, but that they couldn't find room in any of the five for this performance is unbelievable. Because I mean, she's perfect in it. There's nothing wrong. Like everything's perfectly just right. And like the scene that like really got to me this time was when they buy Gene the bike and he's riding the bike
Mm,
around and she's like, I can't afford this. And they're like, just let him have the bike. We got it for him. It's secondhand. And then she's watching him ride the bike and she's just like, he looks really happy, doesn't he? They're like, yeah. And then he comes back and she goes, I didn't know you were such a good biker. And that just stuff is just like, then
I
when you see
know.
like, it just kills you. And then like you see the stuff later in the movie, you're like, she's just so good at playing all the different parts. But the part about the mother who's struggling with like being a mother in like the right way is just, that's so touching and she's so good at it. I had forgotten that I remember that she had to shoot him. I had forgotten that she bludgeons him with a metal
I'd
thing.
also forgotten that.
I had forgotten that because because when I looked at the back of the DVD cover and it said rated R for some violence. I was like, that has to be the shooting, but I don't remember it being that bad. And then when I watched the scene, I was like, oh, they also show her beat him to death with in the head. So that is interesting though. In the musical number that starts after she kills him, that he pops up and starts singing with her and he's got the wounds on his head. Interesting. The last thing I'll say is I was very happy to see Joel Grey because I forgot he was in this movie. Uh, Joel Grey showing up as the guy she says is her father, who's the tap
Yes.
dancer from
Yes,
overseas.
I love him.
And then he participates in the song in the courtroom, and I was like, I love Joel Grey. That was awesome. Yeah, I was really happy to see him because I had totally forgot. I don't think I knew who he was when I first saw the movie. Now I know who he is, but yeah.
I was gonna say the same thing. When he popped up, I gasped. I was like, I can't believe
Hmm.
he's in this movie because I immediately recognized him, even
Yeah.
with the mustache that he had.
Right.
But I definitely had no idea who he was when I first watched it. So yeah, the performances are great. She does such a great job. And like I wanted to say maybe nowadays she would have been nominated, but also like who knows with the Academy and all their
Yeah.
same thing with like Melancholia. I think Kirsten Dunst should have not only been nominated, won it that year, but
Yeah.
because this man
Yeah.
opened his mouth, it ruined it. And it's like, why is that her fault? But
Yeah.
that's another conversation.
Well, you're right. Also, though, it might have not if it was today because the stories about the two of them would have gotten publicized much earlier nowadays. And I
Yeah.
think you're right. I think they almost feel like by nominating her, they're giving kudos to the director who was
Yeah.
a bad guy or said bad things like in the Melancholia stuff. Yeah, it's really unfair the way they take it out on the stars of the movie, especially the actresses, actually, more so than the men. Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's the case.
Yeah.
Um, so, but I mean, it is a performance that is, in retrospect, been given a lot of love. But we can move to the second segment, and it'll probably be fairly brief because we chatted about it a couple films a few times now. But what he does right before Dance in the Dark is a film called The Idiots, 1998, which is also it's the second film, as mentioned, in the Golden Heart trilogy, first being Breaking the Waves. This is very much Dogma 95, very handheld, very shaky cam. It's aggressive in its nature, and I only watched it last night for the first time. It'd been on
I
my
was
list
like,
for a long
I'm gonna
time.
watch this tonight. Maybe I'm very curious about it now.
Yeah, I don't want to tell you not to watch it because I never do that for any even movies that I dislike. I would never tell someone not to watch it because I think it's an interesting watch. Subject matter to me incredibly offensive, and I think people who like this movie think that he has empathy for the people that these characters are making fun of. Essentially, it's about this group of young-ish adults, like people in their, let's say, late 20s, early 30s. I guess it's not young adults, but adults who are pretending to be mentally disabled by seeking their inner idiot. It's called The Idiots. Um,
Oh.
it's really a lot. It's really a lot. And at first I was like, okay, let's see. Maybe it's not going to be maybe it won't offend me. It did deeply offend me, a lot, and I hated every second of it, but I am glad I did finally watch it so I could just be like, "Okay, you know, I've done the thing." I do appreciate that that was kind of like the last of his very Dogma 95. It's weird because Breaking the Waves is more along the lines of Dancer in the Dark, I think, visually. Again, both Robbie Mueller doing both of those. That's why it has a crisper look. The Idiots
Yeah.
is very aggressive looking. And a lot of his earlier films kind of mirror The Idiots look wise. So I personally appreciate the move towards stuff that looks a little bit more cinematic, but it is still very grounded. But yeah, I would be curious to hear your thoughts on it after you do watch it.
Yeah, I didn't know that that's what I didn't know anything about it. And you know what? The first thing I'm going to do when we're done is I'm going to go back and just see what Siskel and Ebert's review of that movie was, because I'm sure they reviewed it if it was
They
98.
did.
And
Oh, it won
okay.
the Palme d'Or.
Okay. So I'm curious they
Yeah,
talked
they
about I know
definitely
Gene
did.
was really sick that year, so he wasn't always
Oh, okay,
there,
okay.
but I'm sure Ebert at least knew about it or talked about it. But yeah, I'm curious to see it because I don't know why I haven't. The one right between the two that I love. I mean, I love a lot of his movies, but like those, I really love Breaking the Waves. I really love Dancing in the Dark. So I need to watch the other part of the trilogy. I didn't even know there was a trilogy until you told me. But I was like, that makes sense though, because there are so many parallels between Björk's character in this and Emily Watson in Breaking the Waves.
Hmm.
Another perfect performance. But anyway, that didn't. She did get nominated, so good for them. But yeah. He does this like with actresses who are new, like who've never made movies before. He puts them through it, and like they always deliver and deliver these awesome performances. Which I think I read somewhere that Catherine Deneuve said that she didn't think of what Bjork was doing as acting. She said she thought it was more like feeling. She
I
was just
read
like,
that too.
yeah,
Yeah.
like feeling so deeply that it just came off the right way. Like I was like,
Hmm.
well,
It
I
worked.
mean, that it worked, but also it may have possibly destroyed her chances of acting again because it put her through. She went through such hell on it, I think, emotionally and everything. Not to count the director stuff. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, I might be wrong, but I don't think she acted again till The Northman.
No, she hadn't. She vowed against acting ever again. And then I don't know how he got her out of that. And then she was like, "Well, I'm open to it, but I will never work with Lars von Trier again." I'm like,
Yeah, he's
"That's
like,
very
don't worry,
fair."
he's not in this. He's not worried about this. Uh, there was one thing I thought about Catherine Deneuve I wanted to say too, which is I love the scene where they're watching the musical together. The second time they're watching the musical, and Selma can't see, and she's like, "What's happening?" And Catherine Deneuve does the dance on her hand with her
Hmm.
fingers. I thought that was really clear. I liked that. I thought there's a lot of good moments between the two of them in this movie. I feel like they have good chemistry, despite the fact it wouldn't seem like Catherine Deneuve and Bjork would go together, but they do. It's kind of pretty sweet. Yeah.
I think he's always been good with, you know, forming those relationships of between women within his films, because in Breaking the Waves, she also has a really good friend too. So it's not like having these women be just solely alone against the world. They do have a support system, but it's unfortunately not enough because there's so much happening. But that's why I do think there is some empathy to him, and which kind of brings us to what he does after. He does Dogville after Dance in the Dark, which is 2003. And now this is the first of another trilogy that is technically incomplete. This is another one that I didn't know was trilogies. So this one's called, it's specifically an American one called Land of Opportunities. So it starts with Dogville. The second one is Mandalay, and there was supposed to be another one called Washington. At this rate, unfortunately, it doesn't look like we might get it. I don't know. He probably gave up on it at this point because Dogville is what, literally 21 years old, which is insane to say. But Dogville is actually the first one I saw of his, and it was one of those that it was on like in Canada back in the day. We used to have this like video on demand service where you could watch movies that had just come out. It was essentially streaming before streaming was the thing, and put it on. It was on, and I knew the names. I knew Nicole Kidman. I knew Paul Bettany and all the other many actors who were in it. I looked at it, I was like, this movie's 3 hours long, but I sat for every single minute of it. And I remember I was in high school at the time and just going to class the next day telling my friend, I saw this movie called Dogville. You guys need to watch it. And they were like, you need to shut up because I talked about it for a week. But this is another film, woman in the lead. There's a lot going on. There's a lot happening to this woman. It's different though than I think Breaking the Waves, Dance in the Dark. I think it's exactly what you said in terms of his criticism of America specifically. So wondering just how you feel about the parallels of Dancer in the Dark and Dogville, and where kind of Dancer in the Dark fits within now those three films.
Yeah, so I had seen Dogville a while back, probably when it came out on DVD or something, and I remember really liking it. And then I was telling you this year they did a 8-movie Nicole Kidman series at the local theater, the in theater. I went back to see it in the theater. And yeah, it's 3 hours, but you're right. It's very hypnotic. You're pretty much locked in the whole time. Like and it's that Our Town type set where it's just like chalk outlines. The whole city's just on a stage. It's like an ensemble piece. Nicole Kidman's obviously the lead, but everybody's, working together. And it just feels really like, it feels like a town. It's crazy how quickly it feels like a real town in that movie, like so fast. And she's the outsider who comes in, and basically the land of opportunity. They, take advantage of her, use her, destroy her. But yeah, the difference to me lies in the fact that she comes in that naive way, like the Emily Watson, the Björk character. And then I don't know why he decides to do this, but he gives her the last laugh in that movie.
Yeah.
Like he lets her turn the tables. It takes forever. I mean, it's like 2 hours and 30 minutes of suffering. And in the last 30 minutes, she's able to do something.
I
know. And so after I saw it, I was telling you this, I want to watch Mandalay because I'm like very curious. They recast her part with Bryce Dallas Howard, and it's a different story, but she's playing the same character. So I'm like, how are they continuing this character? And it's very hard to find. I'm going to have to work harder to find it. But because I do want to see it, I'm curious. It doesn't have as good reviews as Dogville. Actually, wait, that's wrong. Because I was telling you, Dogville has strangely bad reviews. And I'm like, I think might be his best movie, in my opinion. That or Melancholia probably are like fighting for best movie for me. And I'm like, yeah. And I'm just like, oh, speaking of the female relationships, Kirsten Dunst and Charlotte Gainsbourg in Melancholia is a great one too. Like, he's good at, like you said, he's good at, I guess, writing those and giving those like well done female relationships where, it's kind of like, it's believable and kind of sweet and nice. It's, however, Dogville doesn't have that. She thinks she has it with about 5 other people, and then they all turn on her. But Siobhan Fallon is back too in that. I remember Siobhan Fallon being in that too. But I think so. I see parallels in a way. Obviously, that's the one where he's really driving the point home. Like, America is bad to me. But I mean, these hit on it obviously, but I think that one's the one where he's like, yeah, this place is awful. So I see the parallels with that, and with her, the way that they present her is sort of like, what is she going to do? Like a little bit helpless. And then that's where it switches, where all of a sudden she isn't helpless anymore. And I think they don't ever give the people, and he doesn't get Breaking the Waves or Dance with. I'm going to take that back. He gives a little bit of that at Breaking the Waves because she does have a moment at the end that is sort of justifies her character. Dance in the Dark, though, I wouldn't count telling her that her son has his eyesight back to be justification enough for what happens to her.
No, I would not say that is at all. I think it gives her some sort of solace, but it doesn't justify, you know, uh,
it doesn't feel like he's pulled a punch at all. It doesn't feel like he's pulled any punches at the end of Dance in the Dark. Yeah.
not in the slightest. But yeah, it is weird that Dogville doesn't have that great of a. I think it might get, like with a lot of movies that are kind of hated or not loved at the beginning, it might get some sort of resurgence later when people are able to distance themselves from him as a person. Unfortunately, and this is very dark, but you know, when directors, artists die, and then everyone's just like, "Oh, let's go back and revisit." All of a sudden, it's like Dogville's his best work. I feel like it's going to be the case. People saying that.
Like I feel that way too because when I watch, I know I keep bringing up Ebert, but for example, he gives Breaking the Waves 4 stars. He gives Dance in the Dark 3.5. After he figures it out, that's not a fraud. He gives it 3.5, and then he gives Dogville like 2 stars, and I'm like, what is crazy to me is how somebody can see Dogville if they understand and have seen Dance in the Dark and Breaking the Waves and not see and be confused by Dogville.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like by that point you know who this guy is, so this movie would not be, like surprising to you or anything that's going to upset. I don't. It's just it's bizarre to me. I have to go back and read his review. I was like, why did he give it a bad review? It's just strange to me.
Yeah, I don't know either, and I wonder if it's a mix of not necessarily with him specifically, because I'm sure he's watched a lot of long movies, but it could be the length, and it also could just be that so much is happening to her physically that it's off-putting. But I think with Breaking the Waves too, there's a lot of physical stuff that happens to her. That's why I find, as much as I don't necessarily want to rewatch either of those, Dance in the Dark is maybe a little easier because not that much physical stuff apart from the last scene that happens to her. It's a lot of emotional. Not that that's easier to watch, but
I know what you mean, though.
Yeah, it is a little bit. So, yeah, it's interesting where Dance in the Dark sits in between those movies like The Idiots, Dance in the Dark, and then Dogville, and Breaking the Waves being before that.
It's the only one of the 3 where the protagonist isn't sexually abused. Really, the only one.
I know.
Dance in the Dark, yeah. And I don't remember the later ones, but Melancholia. That's way later though. Melancholia is a different chapter. I feel like it is. That's not.
It is.
Yeah.
I think Melancholia starts off then where he goes with like Antichrist and the Nymphomaniac stuff.
Yes.
So it just has a whole different look to it, also. But
it's a gorgeous movie, Melancholia. I love that movie.
I know. I'm looking forward to rewatching that one because it's been a while. But we can move to the last segment, which is trademarks, and we've already kind of talked about a lot of this stuff, so we can expand on anything. But like, I am curious to hear your thoughts on, a lot of the movies we talked about in the last few minutes often star women, and they're often kind of naive women, and sometimes they get their last huzzah or last say at the end.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
And then the way he portrays men in all these movies is also interesting because as someone, if you're watching this from the outside, you might think he hates women because of what they're going through, but then the way he's portraying these men is incredibly vile. So it's like, you could say he also hates men. I would assume he just hates people in general, or maybe he doesn't. I don't know. But I find it curious or interesting how he specifically portrays men in like almost all of his films, even something like The Idiots, like the men are the most vile in that. So it's interesting coming from someone that has this public persona as being very harsh and has had a lot of women say stuff about him, but the way he portrays men in this film is, like that. I don't know how you think about it.
It's interesting because when you think about like for example, if I think of Breaking the Waves, that character that Stellan Skarsgård played is generally a good guy. And then the main tension of the movie is you don't know if he's crazy or not when he's asking her to do the things he asks her to do. You don't know if he's in his right mind. So that makes that interesting. He's almost kind of, you don't know what that is. So, but then you're right. When it goes to, I didn't see the idiots. Doesn't sound great. When he moves to Dance in the Dark, the David Morse character is, like you said, he's plays it very well, but he's a very manipulative, very, abusive, just friend personality, anybody like to be around. And he's, a thief and, everything else. But, I would say, it is kind of a mix. Like, I think the Peter Stormare character, I thought they were going to go in a worse, creepier route with him than they do ultimately.
Yes.
I don't know if you felt that. Yeah, it feels like there's a period of time when it feels like maybe something's weird there. And maybe it is that he's always following her around, but it turns out he's just kind of a gentle soul who obviously has a crush on her. But in Dogville specifically, a lot of those characters do the switch. Like the Paul Bettany character, he seems genuine, nice, kind of meek and quiet and, people pleasing. And he's the last to kind of turn to the other side with everyone. And then it happens. So I feel like as his movies have progressed, the men are getting worse and worse and more bleak. The view of them, but again, it was never that great to begin with. We kind of only had Peter Stormare and Dance in the Dark to hold up the flag of like good men, and everyone else since has been kind of rough. And I'm trying to remember Melancholia. I don't remember if Alexander Skarsgård was too bad, but I feel like he's just not necessary in that movie. Like that movie doesn't care about those men at all, really. So it's just, I think, Von Trier's sympathies lie with the women, I think, and even though he does put them through hell, I think that's our entry point always. And I think he is sincere with that, like wanting to show their experience as much as he can, even in terrible circumstances. But yeah, he's not, I don't think the men they don't get much at all from him.
No, they definitely don't seem to get a pass. And I'm glad that you mentioned Jeff, who's Peter Stormare's character, because at some point you kind of want to just be like, man, listen to her. She said no. And there is that point too of like, she said no, just leave it. But then it doesn't go that route. Like even towards the end, he could have turned on her at any point and just like, fuck you. But he is, I think, just one of those genuine people who just thinks that I need to be there to help her, not necessarily wear her down, but just be there for when she needs me. And it is at least a bit of a relief sometimes, very brief, when he shows up every now and again in the story. But he's also great in this movie. But I think, like you said, if it's not someone who's like questionable or kind of vile, or someone like later on in Melancholia, I find a lot of times he kind of just casts the women aside. And I wonder if it's kind of like, because I did, at this point, it would be 2 months ago by the time this is released, a series on Hanukkah. And he said he prefers having women in lead character roles and writing women because their struggles are more interesting than men's struggles. So I wonder if von Trier is also kind of along that same length, because it's very rare that he has a male lead, or at least a co-lead. It's usually women that he's focusing on. So I don't know what his deal is there.
I feel like that's probably right. Like, I feel like he would probably subscribe to that theory. It's just interesting that he has kind of he has sympathetic and those kinds of takes on the women in his movies, but supposedly in real life, he's like Nicole Kidman has also spoken about having had trouble with him on Dogville. I think he's just like a yeller and kind of like a jerk. I don't, that's the impression I get. And then obviously Björk said even worse. So, I mean, it's like, it's like, dude, you got these ladies giving you like the best performances of their lives. Don't be such a jerk.
Totally.
Yeah. Why are you being such a jerk? They're doing their best work for you, for your great movie. So why don't you calm down? Yeah.
Exactly. Like you need them. Otherwise this film doesn't work. Like any of these films, if those performances weren't as good as they are, they wouldn't work as well because it would be harder for us to follow the films, I think. I think he's just not a people person. Like he just does
No,
not
yeah.
know how to talk to people in
Yeah.
any capacity.
Yeah.
Yeah. But one of the other things I noticed, and I can't remember because I'm starting to go through the rest of his stuff and like revisiting some stuff, but I know in Breaking the Waves, music is a huge component of that film. It's done differently here. You get those like kind of intertitle scenes where it's like explaining what we're gonna see in this next chapter, and there's a huge song that everyone kind of knows on each time. And there's musicals with the famous musician. Like everyone at that point, especially, would have known who Björk was, even if they didn't listen to their music. So his interest in music and the way he kind of navigates it here is interesting to me because I think he had Björk sign off specifically to make the music, and then he convinced her to be in this.
Yeah, it is interesting to think about that Bjork was doing the music for this before she was the star, because it feels like you couldn't possibly separate those two things at
Yeah.
all. Like her from the music, or like her performances of her music are so specific to like a Selma world that you're just like, who else could they have gotten to do any of this? And
Hmm.
to be honest, Breaking the Waves has been so long that the music, I kind of forgot. I need to rewatch it. I've forgotten how big a part the music is in that movie. I definitely need to rewatch that. I got the Criterion and I need to a sale and I need to rewatch it. I remember the music from Dogville. It's sort of that like, well, the narrator and the music. I kind of remember both together, but um, in this case, it's such a huge part of it that they seem so. I'm like, there's nothing I could even think of where you could get someone different, because it's like you need the person. The person's basically like pouring out their soul, so you need the person who does the music to be almost the author of it. I feel like. And he's lucky that he has somebody like we talked about, like Bjork, who sounds so innocent and childlike when she sings, and just like I don't know, uncorrupted or so. There's something just very, I don't want to say
Hmm.
childlike, but it's kind of childlike a little bit. Like her, I mean, I like her music, but I'm not like a huge fan. But I've always thought she was talented. I was wondering, so there's only 6 songs in the movie. I was wondering, do you have a favorite one?
Um, I do like the one in the factory, but maybe
That's
the
one, yeah,
one, yeah, also on the train with Peter. I don't know. I find that one
yeah. They were
sweet
saying that
also.
Tom York did the yeah,
Yeah, the actual soundtrack version. Yeah.
yes, yeah. Yeah, I like the factory one a lot. It's a banger.
Mm,
And then I like the one in the courtroom. Well, it takes place like half in the Sound of Music practice, and then it finishes up in the courtroom. But it's that the Catch Me When I Fall song. I think that was I like that a lot. But yeah, they're all really good songs. I feel like she did like a great job. Especially, it's just a weird plot, and you kind of have to find ways to thread it all together. I feel like the music does a good job of doing that. So yeah.
yeah, I think that's also one of the last points I want to talk about. Because you mentioned at the top something about him kind of jokingly saying that I'm going to destroy the idea of American musicals, and I think in a way he kind of did because we talk about musicals nowadays. You mentioned something like a Wicked and other films that I mean, Wicked is not pretending not to be a musical, but there's been other films that have come out and people go there and they're like, wait, this is a musical. Why didn't you
Oh
advertise
yeah.
it as such? Because people are not conditioned to watch them anymore unless you watch older films. So people are always just like, why are they, bursting into song and dance? I'm like, it's a musical. That's why they're doing that. But the way he crafts it in this, I don't know that he's making fun of them. I think he probably is a huge musicals fan, but he is kind of pointing out the fact that a lot of those musicals have kind of silly plots and nonsensical plots. Like a lot of this is kind of nonsensical and really dramatic. So you kind of need something like the trope of a musical to back up what we're seeing. Otherwise, you're like, really, this is all happening like this in this sequence. So mixed with the genre of musical and just the way it's filmed and those specific scenes, I'm just wondering how you feel about it was done here.
Yeah, and you're right that I think it was between I think it was kind of two factors. I think the fact that two musicals came out during the pandemic, I'm thinking In the Heights and West Side Story, which to me, West Side Story is one of Steven Spielberg's best movies ever. Like that movie, I think is great. But I think the message that they got was the musicals are box office poison, so we have to hide it all the time. As I were talking about, like when they made that Mean Girls movie earlier this year,
Yeah.
they didn't even let anybody know it was music. So if you're watching that trailer and you're just like, so they're just redoing all the scenes from the original, like it's so weird. What the movie feels like too. You're like, it's a bad song followed by a bad version of a scene you've seen a million times. It's weird. Um, yeah, I was not a big fan of that one, but yeah, now with Wicked, it almost feels like the first one in a while where they're like advertising it as a musical, and I guess they know that it's got such a following that they'll sort of it'll be fine. But it almost needs that much pedigree behind it to like lift it, I guess. Yeah, the music scenes in this movie, I would have even been happier if they'd added more songs, but I'm okay with the 6 we have. And I feel like actually, you know what? More songs might have been worse because they're spaced out and there's only 6 of them. You really appreciate the ones and what they're saying. I feel like when they come, and they come at such specific moments when she's like escaping a bad situation in her brain, whatever's worsening and worsening of her life, kind of. She has to get away from it. So I think that makes you appreciate them more. And the way that I was like, I kind of felt that way before I watched the movie. I was like, I remember these being sort of cheesy or campy or just kind of, like, I think that's what Ebert probably meant, that they were fraudulent because like he didn't really mean the musical numbers. And I was really, really taken aback by how well done they were. I was like, I think he means this. I think this is sincere. So, yeah.
No, I think it's exactly that, because I also kind of remember them being like, I don't know, maybe not. They felt disjointed maybe the first time I watched it, but this time I was like, oh no, he's actually, like you said, taking this seriously, because he
Yeah.
could have made it super campy and off-putting for you to fully hate the idea of a musical, but he was like, no, I'm going to make this sweeping.
Yeah.
Um,
Sweeping's the best word for it. Yeah.
yeah, I think he chose, again, Robbie Mueller being behind the camera, the perfect person to do that, while also maintaining the visual look that he's going for in this movie, because it still looks like it's within that movie, but it just have a different feel as well. So,
I think sweeping is the perfect word for it because that's what this movie has. That's the most in common with like old Hollywood musicals, is that sweeping quality where you feel like you're really caught up when the music starts in the scene. And this could have not had that, but this does have that. To me, it has that effect. When those numbers start, you do kind of get lifted away into another stratosphere. So that's probably the best accomplishment of this movie, I would say, is that he's able to pull that off in a movie that's so dark.
and which reminds me, when you read like, letterbox reviews, some people mentioned it, and it wasn't something I remembered from the first time watching it, but when she says at some point early on in the film that when she goes to see musicals, she likes to leave before the very last
Yeah.
number, because then it just gets dark, and people and like the reviews are like, I should have listened and just like turned it off
Yeah.
after the second last song. And I'm like, yeah.
I saw a funny thing. It was Letterboxd, or no, maybe it may have been Reddit, but somebody wrote, they actually took this out, like put it on, they were talking about the movie Dance in the Dark, and they said, I'm like 30 minutes from the end, and I don't know what you guys are talking about. This is not that sad, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I want to write back and say, did you survive the last 30 minutes?
Yeah.
Because you obviously didn't get to the right part. Like,
No.
if you walked away from the movie, like you said, like a little bit earlier before the last number, you might think it's kind of a downer, but not that sad. And then you're like, oh wait, no, this is the most devastating movie of all time.
Truly, because like it was up until like I'd seen it before, but it was up until that where I was like, okay, I am sad and I feel for this woman, but I'm not at the point of tears until you're like, okay, cool. My day's ruined. Thanks,
It always gets you.
life.
Always gets you. Yeah. You can't escape this movie.
You really can't. Um, any last words on, common trademarks that he employees in his films that you see here, or any just last words on the film itself before we move to the very, very last question?
Does Stellan Skarsgård count as a trademark?
I think
But he
so.
has been
I think
he's
so.
been in so many of his movies. I'm like, he must, and he seems like a good guy. So I'm like, We need to talk to him and find out what's going on with Lars. Um,
I know.
so yeah, but definitely some of the stuff we covered. I guess like the naivete of a female protagonist who has to like suffer through a bad circumstance. The challenge between making her seem like a victim or making her seem like she's has some control or agency over it. That's hard because he did a really hit that was really difficult in Breaking the Waves, and this
Hmm.
also, and then I think Dogville allows her more agency. But like, yeah, it's tough because you don't want to be watching the movie thinking like, oh, poor her, she keeps getting put upon, everything's horrible is happening to her. I think maybe the quality he gives her that helps counteract it the most is like some feistiness and
Hmm.
some for example, when they the first scene where they bring the son to the factory, he's been skipping school. You can tell she's like a strict mom, and
Yeah.
she's not a pushover, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So like she's taking on horrible circumstances, but I don't know, like no one's strong enough for this stuff, but she feels like a strong character to me even still. You know what I mean? So I think one of the trademarks is Von Trier likes to present a strong. I hate to say this because it sounds so cliche, like a strong protagonist, and because like everybody's strong, but yeah, but one who's like a female going through some trying circumstances, and hopefully they come to the other side. But you know what I mean. You never know. So yeah, I feel like he likes to examine that a lot.
Just jumping off of that quickly, you might see on surface level that she seems meek and naive, but like, look what she does for work.
Yeah, right.
That's not something that's an easy job. And she's made it this far on her own. She doesn't seem to have had that much family. She made it over to America on her own with a child. Who knows where the child's father is, but obviously he wasn't needed. So she's made it this far on her own, made the arrangements to get, you know, her son this operation eventually and saved up the money for it while also having to take care of him herself, pay rent and all that. So she's incredibly strong, but sometimes, outside circumstances can break through the strength,
Yeah,
as
yeah.
we see in this movie.
Well, it made me sad too when she was like trying to work the night shift and that person was overseeing her going, "You have to work faster than this." I was like, "She's going fast enough. Like she's not, I thought she was doing fine. She was trying her best. And like you said, it's a hard job. What do they want you to do? Run through the factory with machinery? Like, yeah, I don't know.
I mean, pretty much.
They're just being tough on her."
I know. Anytime I see a movie with like that's like in a factory like that, I always think of The Machinist. And I'm always just
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
when someone's gonna get their hand chopped off in some
Yes.
device.
Another movie I haven't revisited in 20 years.
Oh no, I haven't seen it. I've only seen it once. I know I
Yeah,
have it on
same.
DVD somewhere, and I'm like, I don't know when I'll watch that one again.
Never in the
Dark.
mood for that one, really. Never in the mood for it.
No. Speaking of, actually, this is a great segue to the very last question, which is the double bill. Now, let's say you watch Dance in the Dark, or you plan on watching Dance in the Dark, someone's planning on watching it. Uh, I had a bit of a struggle with pairing this because I'm like, I don't know that anyone would want to watch another thing right after, or maybe you do just to kind of cleanse your mind. So, do you go something that's similar, or do you go something opposite? There's no wrong answers. What would be your choice for Double Bill?
I'm gonna go with a similar movie that I love, maybe even more than this. I love them both, but Tim Robbins' movie Dead Man Walking is
Mm,
to me,
yeah.
I think it's a great movie, and I think it's almost like nearly a masterpiece. Like I think it's so well done. So there's obvious reasons why. It has a lot to do with the death penalty and the natural progressions things take when someone's on death row and they're not gonna get a stay, for example. But there's certain moments in that end of that movie, like almost like this does, like it's just like I don't know how to explain it. It's like the way they direct the march to, death and like how they show the reactions of the people who are there. Like in Dead Man Walking, the crazy thing about that movie is Sean Penn's accused of killing two people, two kids, and the whole time Susan Sarandon's the nun trying to do two things. First, save his soul. Like it's a movie that actually takes religion seriously. and Catholicism
Mhm.
seriously, and then also trying to see if she can help him figure something else out. And she talks to both of the parents of the kids he's killed, and they don't seem any happier. They don't seem. It's like you almost get the thing of like the death penalty is pointless because if they're killed, that will not make you feel any better. It'll seem like it was too quick, too easy. It's just
Yeah.
it's over. What do you
Yeah.
do with all this feeling we still have left? I feel like that's sort of the argument of the movie. And I feel like this movie Dance with Dark might be a little less political in its what it's saying, even though I don't like to say political. I don't feel like Dead Man Walking feels that way. It feels like an
Hmm.
emotional, like sweeping drama when you're watching it. But I feel like it's trying to make an impact maybe more than Dance in the Dark is. But there's parallels to me in how touching and dark and like just a matter of fact those scenes are where someone's marching to death.
Hmm.
There's a parallel there, and if I watched both of them the same day, I'm sure I would be very upset. But they're to be, you know what? You're never upset when you watch a great movie. There's no such thing as a depressing movie that's great. So if you watch two great movies in one day, that's a good day, even if you're crying at the end.
Exactly. I think
Yeah.
that's exactly how I feel and why I was very glad to watch it as much as it, you know, messed up, my feelings. I was so glad to
Yeah.
watch it because it's so well done. Dead Man Walking, I haven't seen that movie in so long, but I remember thinking it was fantastic too. Tim Robbins is a great director.
Oh yeah, it's underrated and almost forgotten. I feel like
Yeah.
people don't think about that movie much, or like it's just kind of faded away with time. It's 30 years old now, I guess, or next year, and it's just really great. Like I saw it recently, I didn't even mean to. It was just on, and I was like, oh, I haven't seen this in forever. I'll watch it, and I was just pretty blown away by it. And yeah, he's a great director, and I mean, Susan Sarandon won the Oscar for it. She's fantastic, and Sean Penn was nominated, and he's like, they're so good in that movie. It blows your mind. Yeah.
Isn't this is a side note, not a very
Mhm.
unserious one, but doesn't Jack Black have like a very small role in that movie?
Yes. He plays Sean Penn's brother or cousin. He
Okay.
comes to visit him at one point. Yes. Hmm.
That's what I thought.
And Peter Sarsgaard is the boy gets killed.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Like
Okay.
very young Peter Sarsgaard, who started out his career making horribly depressing movies. That and Boys Don't Cry, and
Yeah.
he's in a lot of
He's
sad movies in his start of
yeah,
his career. Yeah.
taking that on. Has he been in Lars von Trier?
It feels like he has, but I think just because his name sounds like Skarsgård.
Yeah, maybe he hasn't. That's so
I
funny.
don't think he has, as far as I know, but I could be wrong. But yeah,
Yeah.
there's too
I
many
mean, he would be a
Scars
good
guards
fit.
and SARS guards, and there's just too many of them.
Yeah, there's too
Hard to keep
many.
them
We
straight.
gotta we gotta separate them there for a
Yeah.
sec. No, that's a great pairing. For me, I wasn't sure which way I wanted to go, and so I went with something it's a little depressing, but less so. I kind of wanted to go along the Dogma 95 route, but something that was obviously inspired by that movement. So this is a British Canadian co-production called Mouth to Mouth, and
Mm,
from 2005. I don't know that anyone outside of Canada watched it because I feel like it was kind of played a lot here. It stars Elliot Page. They were
mm,
quite young at that point. They might have been in their, I don't know, early 20s, late teens at that point. But it's about kind of like this group of nomads traveling around, and the way it's shot. I don't know why it randomly popped up in my head, and I was like, "Oh yeah, this kind of reminds me of Mouth to Mouth that I used to watch a lot." So if you want something that's visually similar, but 10 years later, like I guess at that point, but in 14 years later, and see how people have been inspired by that movement, you could go that route too. I
yeah.
thought maybe I'd go something as depressing, but I'm really not trying to have people hate me. So
I just thought, can I give one more? I just thought of one
yeah,
more
please.
that I had forgotten and just hit me like a freight train. Depressing musicals that have to do with well, I don't want to give it away. Depressing musicals that have to do with the legal system in some way. How could I not have said Pennies from Heaven? Herbert
Yeah.
Ross's Pennies from Heaven with Steve Martin. It's also the most depressing musical you'll ever see. Also, fantasy sequences taking people away from their horrible like lives, and then it ends devastatingly. So that's maybe the perfect one to pair with it, actually, now that I think about it.
Yeah, that's hilarious. I watched that because of you when you suggested it in Film Club. And I remember everyone being like, wow, this is darker than we anticipated a Steve Martin movie
For
thing.
musical
Like,
month,
yeah.
yeah.
No, great choice. Those are great choices. So, for the listener, I hope if you haven't seen those, you've added them to your watch list because those are all very different, interesting movies that would, I think, complement Dancer in the Dark very well. But thanks for going through this with me, Scott. I really appreciate it. I'm genuinely happy that you brought it on and that you had the enthusiasm for it. And I really love the conversation. So I appreciate it, you coming on.
Thanks for having me again. Yeah, I was excited to get to watch this again because I've been meaning to forever, and I needed a reason to make me do it. So, and now I own it, so I can watch it whenever I want. I'll do it every year on this day.
Yeah,
No,
you should,
um,
make it a, what is it,
make it an
November
annual thing.
tradition?
Yeah, just I want to cry right before Thanksgiving every year. Um, but thanks for having me back. This is fun. I've enjoyed talking about it.
Yeah, I'm excited for what next depressing movie we chat about.
Yes, I'll make sure it fits the bill every time.
Please do. Seeing Faces in Movies is an official podcast of the Royal Film Club. It's hosted and edited by Felicia and Roney, with intro music by Lamarla. If you like what you heard, let us know at seeingfacesinmovies.com or send us an email at seeingfacesinmovies@gmail.com. And while you're at it, please subscribe and rate the show wherever you listen to your podcasts. Stay tuned for our next episode on The House That Jack Built. Watch more movies, and I'll see you next time.
Clatter, crash, clang, cracky, bang, song, rattle, clang, crack, sack, whack, bang! It's beauty.